watch Game of Thrones, you know the depth of this moment. If you don't watch Game of Thrones and have no idea who this is, congratulations. You have missed a moment of despair, darkness. You have slept better for the past year or so. But these 3 words will bother you probably the rest of your life, and spoiler alert, it doesn't end up good. Hold the door. Hold the door. Hold the door. I remember watching this and thinking to myself, that reminds me of a story I like to share all the time. Now in my old age of 28 with 3 gray hairs, I have learned what it might mean to hold the door in a story that is very unique to this parallel. There was this guy early on in his career. He received what was a recruitment letter in the early years of the 1900s when land-grant colleges, better known as HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, sent out across the nation, scouring the land, looking for individuals who were willing to come south of the Mason-Dixon and teach freely nude slaves. Understanding the ramifications with that, they put together a list of things to be understood when one was traveling from other parts of the nation to a place where an unelected man reigned supreme. That unelected man's name was Jim Crow. And he had garnered so much control in the South. It was known but untouchable. And you could only see remnants of moments of Jim Crow. So he gets 2 tickets. One is to take him from where he started, which is Boston, South Station, go Sox, and go all the way down to the Carolinas. The Carolinas is where he gets to having taken an integrated cart on the first leg. For the first time in his life, he understands it and he sees it. He says, colored and white. Understanding the tonation in his skin, he makes his decision and walks into what is a crowded railroad waiting station. The room is full. It is diverse. He sees a young lady with her teenage boy. He sees an elder gentleman with his wife. He sees a couple of children with an older man. He sees a number of what looks to be college students headed in the same direction as he. So he sits down and he waits. And then something catches his eye. This young man gets up and he walks to the corner. He does something that's a little bit surprising. He starts to relieve himself. Now, before you judge him, there's 2 places in America you can still do that. One, I just did it last weekend. It was on the 2nd hole, trying to find my 8th golf ball, off in the bushes somewhere. The other place, and I'm sure some of you know, I've heard about it, is earlier in the year on a street called Bourbon, late in the night. Heard about it. But this wasn't New Orleans, nor anybody's country club. He was doing this in the public in the corner, and the professor felt uncomfortable. He said, I'm convicted to tell you, young man, excuse me, you can use the restroom. The room looked at him, he looked at the room, and the young man says to him, sir, I would, but I don't have the dime to pay the toll. He says, what do you mean? He says, well, here, Jim Crow has made it to where if you want to use the restroom, one must pay in a change lock in order to use it. And I just don't have that money. And this is where I think leadership has a transition. The professor says, okay, reaches into his pocket. I have a little bit of change left over on my way down. He says, I'll pay the lock. And I'll open the door and you'll go in. And he turns to the crowd and says, who else has to use the restroom? Hands go up. He says, okay, this is what we'll do. Line up. All of those who need to use the restroom. And when this young man gets done, he'll come out. And he'll do those three famous words. He'll hold the door. And then the next person, don't forget, three words. Hold the door. And then the next person, and then the next person, and then the next person. You see, his one idea of change led to change for the whole of the room, because he understood that leadership is not only finding innovation, you have to find an opportunity to empower another generation. For that 10th person that was in line knows not of the professor's original payment. Doors, ladies and gentlemen. That perspective is extremely unique, and I'm not going to take too long. There's no benediction at the end. But I would like to convict you to sort of ask that question on how you see leadership. What does it look like for you to hold the door? The first step, I guess, in a way, is opening the door. A number of my team is here today, and I remember, and let me tell you, in 28 years, I'm convinced in November I might turn 41. But along the trail, we used to go to these establishments where, and my grandmother's going to watch this, so I have to be careful with my words, seasoned and elder individuals would be. And I would talk with them, and my team would converse with them as we talked about bringing change to our community. And all of them would say, young man, you sound so smart. That's a great idea. I absolutely agree. Can you pass me the hot sauce? I would say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. There was one man who said, I love everything you're saying, but there's something in me that will not allow me to vote for somebody who's younger than my best pair of socks. Hand to God, first thing I said was, where in the world do you get some socks like that? But he said it was the age, nothing I could change, that bothered him. The ideas, the content, the perspective was everything he needed to hear. But it was my age. And I started thinking, we get to this perspective of age and leadership, right? This guy right here, Thomas Jefferson. If you were to bring him back in time, I know it that I know it. He would not make this his LinkedIn picture. He dies at 83 years old, and you guys want to show Thomas Jefferson almost on his deathbed with gray hair. And the reason that is important is because he'll say to you on July 4th, 1776, Devyn, I was 31 years old. And then maybe James Madison would come in and say, hey, I was 25. Alexander Hamilton would say, I was like 23. Founding fathers, more like founding millennials, who would share their experience. Hey, just wrote the Declaration of Independence, Snapchat that. Get this on IG. We're creating a nation. Young, youth. But we've disconnected that through pictures and words, where really the ascension of most of our leaders starts around this time frame. And even in today's time, Malala, the beauty of her life is just as beautiful as her name. I will not attempt the last name, but I know it sounds beautiful. But a young girl who at the age of 16, point blank range, takes a bullet for what we consider to be intrinsically liberty, everything natural about life is that you should have the opportunity at education. 16 years old changes a community. That community changes the conversation. That conversation changes the world. And she becomes the youngest to ever win a Nobel Peace Prize. And I am sure that the many of women who have benefited from Malala care not of her age. We must find opportunities, as I say, young folks, to remember that no matter where you are in that line, you are to hold the door. And that you don't know who is to come behind you. Maybe it was somebody older, maybe it is somebody younger, but the call to hold the door cannot be correlated to age. Once you hold the door, what does that look like? Well, I imagine we all understand that that comes at a price. Without a doubt, if found using a white restroom, you could be jailed. Without a doubt, found defaming or defacing a colored sign, you could be jailed. That room, in need of something, was willing to take all the risk. Because every time you hold the door, you are stopping a door that wants to be closed. So that means that it comes at a sacrifice. And ladies and gentlemen, with all due respect, in a city full of titles, leadership is not what I pay you for. It's called your job. Because somebody is a CEO or a manager or a director, that is great. You have a skill set that helps us increase our revenue. That's your job. I would argue that leadership is sacrifice. Putting yourself in between what someone needs and who's coming in. This young man, yes, I said young, he always had a really good haircut. I really would love to know the barber of Dr. King. But he steps out in the early 50s at 26 years old. And many individuals have this perspective that he started the civil rights movement. Oh, no, no, no. He was picked from an already ongoing bus boycott movement. They said, you look like you can wear a suit. Heard you got a pretty good education. We could use you. And Dr. King knew at that moment, at 26 years old, it's my turn to hold the door. Never knowing that at the end of this thing, holding that door would come at the cost it did. Sacrifice, ladies and gentlemen. And even more beautiful, beyond the picture. Fannie Lou Hamer, it's 1964. I know all of you are too young to remember that year, but they're in New Jersey. And if you get a chance, I remember watching a PBS storyline, and it talks about the 1964 delegation meeting. And it has the original guy in there, Dr. King, the wife of the freedom rider as well, who was killed in Mississippi. And then comes this unknown name. She walks in as if she's never owned heels in her life. Some of you still walk like that. But if you watch the YouTube, she walks with a persistence as if she knows something nobody else knows. Fannie Lou Hamer sits down, sweat from her brow, a purse full of what I can imagine, everything she owns. And she starts just like this, having King already spoke, having every other delegate hearing from the names. She says, in 1962, Mr. Chairman, I and 18 others rode down to a little town to register to vote. She goes on in that 8-minute speech to say, I was arrested. I was taken back to a room. I was beaten. She speaks from a place of conviction that says, I did. You see, we believe holding the door is some sense of success. But maybe holding the door, because she has yet to register, would be, I endured and failed. And I want to share what that failure looked like. It was such a convicting story. You can Google it. Lyndon B. Johnson cuts into it so that the nation can't hear what a personal testimony sounds like. See, LBJ understood what I think others don't. I have a dream. It sounds good, but it's just a dream. Conceivably yet to be experienced. What Fannie Lou Hamer says is, I lived it. Holding the door for some of you is, you need to share what you lived. The failures and the success, the beatings, whatever that looks like for you. And do it with a prowess that allows you to walk and speak in such confidence. We open doors. We hold doors that were open for us. But in a lot of ways, with this new level of technology and life, we have a unique opportunity to see doors in a different way. See, I have given you the perspective that it is to close something, a barrier between you and the things that you want. But some have looked at it as an opportunity to open a portal, a gateway of ways. Though you are not here called to maybe fight a social resolution, the opportunities of not being content with seeing doors in the same manner. Now, Mark has more commas in his bank account than I did in my senior capstone in grad school. But his success is not because he invented the internet. No, he created a platform that in a lot of ways has been used as a tool. You see, crimes, especially in metro areas, have a Facebook division of which they solve crimes because of Facebook posts and parallels and cyber attachments. Families. I myself, through the processes of life, met my 19-year-old brother with the sound of a Facebook message. Having never known him, living only about 10 miles away from where he grew up. And as I see the picture, I say to myself, now, God, of all the people to give green eyes, you give it to him and not me. But because of Facebook, the connection was made. We can go on to Marie. And for those smart people in the room, I guess you know where I'm going with this. So she did like all the things that we hear when we watch Bill Nye the Science Guy and like when we get to Cosmos on the television. But this is the first person that ever went to Nobel Peace Prizes and really called the mother of physics. Helping us understand how we look at germs and opening the door for female scientists. Creating a new perspective of how we really look at medicine even. A door is a challenge for some. But maybe you are in the place in life where you can make a door a gateway for others. So I get to my final perspective, one that I am experiencing now more than ever. Significance over success. For everybody who's watching, if you find a politician who is making a lot of money, he's not a politician. You, we have this ability to identify problems. And we petition organizations. We petition the governance and our leaders to identify a solution. In between there, ladies and gentlemen, is innovation. The little dash between your problem and your solution is innovation. And I would argue, in whatever realm you are in, you must fight to do important things rather than to be an important person. And if you do that, you become innovative. And the significance of those things have a new value. If I was to ask you right now, what is your most significant moment in life, and who was it with? Who really made an impression upon yourself? You might say my third grade teacher. I hated her, but she made me do those flashcards, and now I'm a mathematician. You might say it was a coach. You might say it was a mother, an aunt, a cousin, your best friend, your professor in college, your husband, your wife, your child. See, you can quantify success in the amount of money you make, cars you drive, the value of your house, that 3-digit number that means everything, like your credit score. But significance is elusive. It's autonomous to us all. None of us would agree on the same significant person. So we must ask ourselves, who are you significant for? That's leadership. His name's Paul Proctor. About a year and a half ago, I was going door to door with a white sheet from a computer, writing my name on there. Many people thought I was a doctor because it was in chicken scratch. And I would just write, trying to change North Huntsville one house at a time. Devyn Keith. I had $13 in our finance committee, enough to buy the important stuff, which was donuts and coffee. I would write, if not now, when? I truly believed that at some point somebody would get it. He got it. And he would finish my story. If not now, when? If not me, then who? The significance of Paul is that he's a twin. And his brother was my opponent. The value in seeing your twin brother stand with somebody else. The magnitude of that. And I used to always tell him, Brother Paul, you don't have to do this. Because the only thing that really matters is when you go in the voters booth, DEVYN. He said, no. I'm convicted, Devyn, to do what is right for my community. Believe in those I believe I can hold accountable. Those individuals, no matter of gender, color, age, that have the ability to take problem and solution and shorten the distance. That's you. That was one of the most significant moments I've had in my long 28 years. 2 days before he passed, he reaches out and says, keep on keeping on, young man. And on Evans Street, never seen the man he believed in take the stage in an inauguration. The guy whose shirt he wore, whose pictures he took. He argued with his brother and with his friends. He never cared about anything other than holding the door for me. That's leadership. Holding the door is leadership. Find your door. Thank you.